Go. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome into the Power G show on a Wednesday evening. I am Graham Covey, your regular size G. That is Mr. George Foster, the powerful G himself. And we are joined by a G and a non-G at the same time, Mr. Keith Marshall, coming to us. Bulldog great. Coming to lend a little of your experience and expertise on Bulldogs and Longhorns coming up Saturday night from Austin. Feels like a pretty substantial moment, not just for the season for Georgia, but kind of for just the narrative around Georgia football as a whole in the kind of, I don't know, the post national title era, post Saban era, Sark, Kirby, two guys kind of fighting for supremacy, both worked for Saban, right? Before we get all the way into that matchup, we did have Georgia-Mississippi State last weekend, and I think that the results of that game and Georgia giving up 31 points has kind of like colored a lot of the conversation around Georgia-Texas. What were your overall impressions of watching the Georgia defense give 31 up to a freshman starter in his second ever college football game?
Who, me?
Yeah, George.
If I'm being honest, man, I honestly,
Please.
in the moment is like, okay, what the, what's that? What's going on? After the fact, I'm not looking into it too much because every game is a different game. Every game is a new game. Levy can call it. You know what I mean? He can.
Yeah.
They just don't have the guys. A couple of my guys over there in that program, and they just don't have the guys, and they know it. I talked to those guys beforehand, and but the coach himself, he can call it, and they got caught, and they got caught not executing. So, at the same time, if they execute, it's a much different game. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of, it's the same thing's gonna happen in this game. You either execute or you don't. You're gonna be put in places to help your team. You're gonna be put in those situations. It's just a matter if you do it as a player or not. So this game, I'm looking at it as a new game. If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I think, there's two types of touchdowns that happen, right? Like there's touchdowns that Mississippi State kind of like earned, and you take your hat off to them. Like that kid made some throws that were high level throws that like guys were in the right position, and they just, good offense beats good defense. But I'm curious, like, Keith, what do you make of the kind of busted coverage issue that we saw pop up on a couple occasions? Because I think you can sort of draw that back to 14 of the points that Mississippi State did score.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Big Foss in that. Obviously, I think this is a new week, so we'll see. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't somewhat surprised, just based on what we've become accustomed to, in terms of Kirby and the way that his teams, particularly the defense, typically execute, and the discipline that we're accustomed to seeing. And it is kind of prolonged this far into the season, where early in the season, I know they're working out some kinks. We're missing some guys. We're still missing some guys. And hopefully those guys get healthy and we get them back and everything starts running. But it has been surprising to see, like, a Mississippi State put up the type of points that they put up on the defense. And really in the way that they did it, where I feel like we got up, the game was really over, but we didn't really slam the door on them from a defensive perspective. We kind of kept letting them make plays, and obviously there's some busted coverage and things like that in there. But overall, it was surprising. I think it's interesting how Kirby will use that to get the guys motivated this week when, obviously the stakes are bigger, and we're playing against a more talented team where you can't have some of those mistakes show up. So maybe it's that silver lining, and they can use it to the advantage this week.
Well, so I mean, I'm curious to get both of y'all's perspectives on this. Like, you hear public fans, media talk a lot about like, oh, well, maybe they were kind of looking ahead to this opponent or that opponent. Is that real? Like, do you feel like that's something that actually kind of factors into a team's performance? Is there a chance Georgia got up 34-14 10 or whatever it was, and just sort of was like, we're good, and they're peeking down the road to Texas, or is that bullshit?
I don't believe in it, but maybe there's a coach or a great philosopher that can prove that it's a thing or not. But that hasn't been characteristic of a Kirby Smart team. They typically slam the door when they have a chance. Might give up something late to your third team or whatever. Guys that have the physical attributes, but they're not mentally ready. But I don't believe they're looking ahead. It's hard to look ahead to nothing while you're playing like football. I don't think people understand the game that football is. You know what I mean? If you're looking forward to dinner, you might get your block knocked off, let alone the next week's game.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about the club that night, if you're thinking about,
I learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, if you think about Flanagan's that night, it's not like you're gonna get dealt with. So no, I don't think guys have the luxury just with the way the game is set up. It's so brutal. It's such a physical. This game can change your life physically. I don't think that guys are looking ahead. I don't think, at least not in mass, looking ahead to the next opponent. Because, and also the guys as a whole, haven't played well enough to have that attitude. And I think they know that. And I'm pretty sure the head man has let them know that. You know what I mean? So I don't think they have the what I want to say, privilege of even thinking that way.
Go ahead. Sorry, Keith.
So I agree, from a mentality standpoint and the way that you prepare for a game, I think you approach every week the same. And obviously, the culture of football is don't look ahead. So I would reframe it and say that, when you're playing certain opponents where on the other side of the ball, they are equally capable. I do think there's a difference going into those games when you feel like, if we don't play our best, they can beat us. And I would be surprised if guys really thought there was a chance that they was going to lose to Mississippi State last week. Whereas this game, it's no question.
And even when they started scoring, that's like the game. I was watching that game. The game was never in danger.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And so when you look at it from that point of view, nobody thought we would lose that game. I don't think nobody thought the game would even be close. So it wasn't close.
When you were playing, back when we was playing, and you were playing a team like we had the warm up games. We'll play, Buffalo, App State, somebody like that.
Yeah,
you still prepare the same, but when you go into that game, you are not thinking there's a chance that we were going to lose that game.
No, you're never thinking that. You never think that. You don't. And honestly, I've never thought. It's just me. I've been lucky enough to be on. Even when I was playing with the Lions, I don't think I ever thought about losing because you go to the SEC, you go to a team like Georgia, you got the players to beat everybody. Mm-hmm. You get in the NFL, you got the players to beat everybody. And there's been one undefeated team in the whole the whole history of the NFL. So that tells you everybody can be beat. Right. So I don't think guys. At least I've never had the privilege. I won't call it privilege of being on a team that's like, damn, we're gonna get our head beat in today.
A couple times in high school for me.
In high school, yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's but yeah, you're right. You're never going into a game like with Mississippi State this year. You never think you're gonna win, gonna lose those games. So you still got to be on your P's and Q's. I know as a lineman, you find out quickly that anybody can beat you. You know what I mean? So I know we had to be on our stuff all the time. Y'all probably think, oh man, I'm finna go off.
Yeah, I mean, like if the athletic, if the delta is that large, it's like there's nothing you can do to really, and there were times we were playing people that felt that way. And so I get what you're saying. I never went into a game thinking we was going to lose, nothing like that. But I'll be lying if I say the getting up for the game was the same when you were playing Buffalo versus you was playing Alabama or LSU. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I think the interesting thing for me with this Georgia team is it feels like they are in some ways a victim of past success with these other teams, because we got so used to seeing Georgia like just not make mistakes, particularly on defense, to where I think a lot of people took for granted or maybe didn't even appreciate how many details like have to go right on every single play for things to look as good as they did in 21 and 22 and even in 23. I know they didn't win a title, but like that was still a very good football team who kind of dominated its competition more often than not. Like, do you feel like we're in a spot watching this Georgia team now where there is kind of like everybody looks at it as this is Georgia, like they're playing the helmet basically, and we're going to go out and kind of make a name? Like Mississippi State played that game for 60 minutes and really kind of kept coming and didn't like lay down at all at any point. I would say if anything, they started playing harder and better as the game went on. Are these guys like struggling a little bit to deal with the reality of, you're the target now in many ways?
Yeah, they are the target. You know what I mean? They're gonna get everybody's best shot. So I don't think that has changed. I think we're just in a spot right now where we are, for lack of a better word, we are witnessing the growing pains instead of them happening in practice and stuff. We're witnessing the growing pains of some players. You know what I mean? I saw a graphic the other day that had Javon Bullard, Lassiter, Tyke.
Yeah.
All those guys are making plays right now. That's what we had to replace.
Right.
And those not only their ability, we had to replace their leadership in that back end, and we had to replace, their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So right now, we have guys out there that don't have the reps that they have. We have guys out there that don't have that they might never have that dog like they had. You know what I mean? I think they're just different guys back there. They're not chumps or anything, but you got guys. You know what them kind of guys look like. You know what I mean? How they play.
Yeah.
Keith. It's just different with some guys. Some guys are just really. Some guys, huh?
Javon, the perfect example to me, like the way he played it, the way he was a dog.
Some guys are just really good players. Other guys are just dogs. You know what I mean? It's different. It's different when those guys leave. Those guys left one unit, and that's one of the units that we have. Some of our biggest, missteps at. You know what I mean? And we lost 3 good NFL players in a unit. You know what I mean? So that's what we're dealing with now.
Well, so taking that a step further, I mean, because I think it seems like the buzzword of the week around Georgia football program is eye discipline. I think Kirby used the term like 3 or 4 times in his post game, used it 3 or 4 times when we saw him on Monday in his press conference. Just straight up from a stat standpoint, I think pretty telling is you look at this kid from Mississippi State last weekend, Van Buren, 14.3 yards per an attempt on his 15 play action attempts for 10 completions. So 215 and a touchdown on 15 play action attempts. And then 10 of 22 for 91 yards, 4.1 yards an attempt on the non-play action. So it seems to me like, just watching anecdotally, a lot of the plays that Georgia is giving up, the plays that like feel like, are more kind of errors than product of you got beat by really good execution by the opponent, is guys peeking in the backfield or taking bad steps or not following a motion man or, some of that stuff. Like, is that fixable in the middle of a season like Georgia's in right now?
So absolutely. In 2012, before we went to the Florida game, we were coming off a Kentucky game that we should have won, and it was a super close game. The defensive had a unit. They had a meeting. Sean, Sean Williams, Sly, how we called him. He called everybody out, and then it was completely different for the rest of the season. So I think the silver lining and the positive news is to your point. A lot of the things that we are giving up is not a matter of talent; it's a matter of execution, and all those things can be fixed. And I would imagine, given what we've seen from Kirby, the emphasis this week in practice and going forward will be on fixing those and kind of eliminating those mental errors. So I definitely think those are things that you can fix throughout the course of the season.
I think you started hitting on what I was about to bring up too. The thing is, you mentioned Sean Williams, and fast forward to this group we have now, is what I was talking about. What we're missing from that group from last year. This year, we don't know who that guy is to get everybody in line. There's a famous clip from the national championship in 21 of N'Kobe jumping on was it Crowder? Was it
Tyndall?
Yeah, Tyndall. Channing Tyndall. And like, hey man, like get your shit together. You know what I'm saying? Totally. And he got it together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we'd have to find out who that guy is on this team. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but those guys matter. You know what I mean? Those guys matter. I'm pretty sure, one of the three guys I just mentioned that they're in the league now were those type of guys. You know what I mean? To get the group together. It's not about talent when you got your eyes in the backfield and the ball go over your head. You know what I mean? You got to be the Flash to recover from that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not, but it's about who's gonna hold you accountable so you won't do it again. And that's the issue. We've had situations where it's happened more than once. You know what I mean? And that right there is what's atypical of a Georgia defense.
Well, so I mean, yeah. When is it just like a pattern? When do we hit a point where it's just like this just is who they are? And I mean, they're just not that disciplined when it comes to some. I mean, like, it feels like penalties are part of this conversation as well, of kind of like guys kind of making bad decisions when they don't really have to, and continuing drives. You saw that on Saturday as well. Like, when does this just become the identity of this football team?
Until you stop it.
Yeah.
Until you fix it. You are what you put on tape.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. And there could come a time where it's not what you put on tape. So that can happen. But until you switch, until you change it up, you are what you put on tape. We can't, make excuses for you or any of that stuff. You are what you are. You know what I mean? So that's
like the reality and the potential. Like, we talking about the potential. Like, can they fix it? For sure. The reality of it is, right now, the last few weeks, they have not done that. So I got faith in my guys. Again, I think Kirby and the best in the country what they do. So I will be surprised if we do not see a stark improvement. But to George's point, right now that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the interesting side of this, right, is we've seen Georgia. We saw Georgia basically spot Bama 28. Not saying that their staff and their players didn't do a lot of great things to get those 4 touchdowns, because they did, obviously. But like, we saw Georgia kind of just not show up for the first 20 minutes of a game against a top 10 opponent, and then come back and take a lead. The very tantalizing thing about all of this, in my opinion, is like, what happens if you put all this together and you play 4 like solid quarters of disciplined, smart football, and guys are on top of things? Because that's the team that from my seat has always been scariest in the sport, is not the team that like is already playing well and we've kind of seen them peak. It's the team that hasn't really put it all together yet, but if they do, they could become a a juggernaut.
Yeah, that is that's what keeps us here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It keeps us tuned in because we know what they're capable of, and we had a glimpse of it. Not last year. We had a glimpse of it the first game this year. You know,
Yeah.
that was a total game. You know what I mean? A lot of people contributed. A lot of people did stuff well against, as we know, Clemson to be now a really good team. You know what I mean? So it's there. So it keeps you. We're there. We hanging on. You know, while we win, whether you deem it ugly or you know not as impressive, we're winning. And so we're hanging in there and waiting for the complete game. The what keeps us hopeful is what we have on the roster. You know,
Right.
they're capable of playing the complete game. It's just a matter of putting it all together from the neck up. You know, that's the issue we're having. You know, we can win. We lose some physical battles every now and then. We got some backups in there that get handled every now and then. I see it on the O line. We have some some continuity issues sometime. You know, but you know the talent is there when you compare it to the rest of the country. You know, I don't think they're at a deficit when it comes to competing for the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I always say this to people, Graham. I think we've talked about it too. It's like the downside of the fact that we've been so good and dominant for so long now. It seems we're talking about a 5-1 football team that we had one
top 5 in the country.
Yeah, it's like we had one, obviously game that we wish we could get a quarterback, and everything else. It's like, to your point, we won. You know what I mean? It's not like we talking about we made these excuses and we lost and it's going to cost us anything. Like it hasn't bit us other than that Alabama game. And so, there's a lot of teams that I know the standard is to be elite and all of these things for sure. But I just feel like we're very spoiled as a fan base at this point because of what we've seen over the course of the last few years. And the reality is, like, we're going down, play Texas. I think them boys going to be locked in because of all the things we've talked about, the learners that they're going to be able for. The environment's going to be there. Everything's going to be against them, backs against the wall. Like, I think this is the time for them to make that stance. I just have a feeling about, like, Kirby's going to be they're going to be locked in.
Be fire and brimstone coming from Kirby all week. I can promise you that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know.
And the
familiarity. So let's talk about. I'm sorry. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I just think the familiarity with Sark and things. I think he knows what he's dealing with, and I think he's going to be ready. I think he's going to have them guys ready.
Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing to me is looking at Texas's, they're very, very highly ranked. All the metrics that, nerds like me look at, like they are top 3, top 5 in success rate offensively and success defensively. They are they're high in early downs. They're great on 3rd and 4th down success rate. There's a lot of good for them defensively and offensively that says, like, this is an elite football team. And it kind of feels like, from just a narrative media standpoint, that the folks have kind of latched onto this idea of, like, this is the one true elite football team maybe in the country, because Oregon, had to come from behind to beat Boise. Ohio State got beat by Oregon. Georgia lost to Bama. Bama lost to Vandy. Like, go down the list. Everybody's kind of got their flaws. The side of things that's interesting to me is the starting quarterbacks that Texas has faced so far this year are a bunch of dudes. Probably the best one they faced is General Booty. Literally, that is the kid's name, ULM. I mean, like, they have not really, Oklahoma had, I think, 5 receivers injured last week when they played. But I mean, you hold a football team to 3 points. I'm not taking that away from you. But
freshman quarterback.
Yeah, a freshman starter. I guess that's what I'm struggling with a little bit, is just how good do we think this team is? We got a comment here from Primetime Dog in the YouTube chat. Has Texas played a passing game yet? That is my question, sir. What say you, George and Keith?
Not yet. I don't think they've faced, a team that can open it up like Georgia has shown that they can open it up. You know what I mean? They have. Now, it's not. I will preface this by saying, I don't want my Georgia quarterback to have 500 yards passing. That's just not. I'm old school.
So,
that's not.
I heard you say that. Why?
That's not what I'm used to. I'm a fuddy duddy. I'm old school. I want us to hand it off to the guys that, bring the lunch pill and let them grind that game down. You know what I mean? Like the games, like that game was 4 hours long. Like it shouldn't, it was a very long game.
Should have been quick, 3 hour, 12-minute in and out.
Yeah, that game was 4 hours. Like that game was super long because we don't I'm glad that we have the ability to do what Carson did. You know what I mean? But we know Carson can pass the ball. We know that. You know what I mean?
We've never seen him do some of that. Like, I mean, the throw that he made to Bell in the back of the end zone where he is fully on the roll, never resets his feet. We've never seen him make that throw.
Yeah, but, you play long enough, you get better.
Well, you know what I mean? I agree. I guess my counter on all this is, there's two. One is that the Auburn game, to me, felt like the week that Georgia came out and kind of like ground and pound. That was a game where they had 8 possessions total in the entire football game on offense. And they just sort of stayed ahead of schedule and kept the clock rolling. And
people were complaining that it was boring. Yeah.
When Kirby bitched about the crowd after the game, the crowd bitched back and said, if you guys played a more explosive style, we would be allowed to come out there and drop 460 passing. Carson Beck is the 6th SEC quarterback in the last 20 years to have 450 yards passing and a 75% completion percentage of the same game. The other 5 were Manziel, Burrow, Bryce Young. Like, that's sexy. Is that not? Do we not want Georgia football to be sexy?
I just want Georgia football to win. If we go in there this weekend and he throws a 450, 4 tugs, I'm talking cash. Like, hey, I'm happy. I'm loving it. But I don't want us to have to do that, and I want us to limit the other team's possessions. You know what I mean? I don't.
Sure.
I think that's a part of it, limiting the other team's possessions, because we see where our deficits are. It's not talent wise. But we have we nut up a little bit on defense sometimes. You know what I mean? And a guy pops out, and that you don't have too much of that if the other team don't have the ball that much.
Well, I hear that.
Sure. So and the fact of the matter is they don't have to. Like you play those type of games when you have to. If you want Carson to throw the ball 50 times and his arm fall off the bone, we gotta watch out for that now. He's not used to that, Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't want that to have to be the case, for him to throw 50 times and us win the game. We don't have to. I think we got the best 1-2 punch could possibly be, if you give them the chance, could be in the country, definitely in our conference. You know what I mean? With 1 and 3, they can tote it. They've shown me enough, that they can tote the ball. So I don't necessarily want us to have to throw for 500 yards.
So I agree. They want more of a balanced game. Would like to not be watching for 4 hours. Like the game to go smooth. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, maybe a hot take, whatever you want to call it. Kind of what you was getting at initially, Graham, is Texas. We really don't know what Texas is. I feel like they've done what they're supposed to do. They're a very talented team. They've played teams that they shouldn't, and they've executed. But I don't think they've seen anything like what was coming down to Austin this week. And I think because of some of the battles that we've been through, obviously it could be a close game, and they could win. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but I also would not be surprised at all if it's like heavy in the dog's favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's a very real possibility that we
sticking your chest out. I like it.
Oh, I agree.
Why?
agree.
So why do you feel that way? Do you just feel like kind of Georgia is due to put it all together?
Who have they had to stomp out?
Texas, you mean?
Yeah. Who have they had to really?
Oklahoma. I mean, Michigan looked like a big win when it happened, but
Michigan is trash. We know that right now.
Yeah, you live up there, you know they're no good.
And I told people, like, I told some Texas fans that, like, don't get all high and mighty if you go up there and beat Michigan. You're supposed to beat Michigan. That Michigan team this year, I told them before the game started, you're supposed to beat them, and you're supposed to beat them pretty good. And look what happened.
I mean, they got Davis Warren was the
team.
Yeah, I mean, they started a walk on, not a Stetson kind of walk on, but a real walk on. It's been rough for them, but I guess the question here is like, all right? Well, so one thing I want to ask about the run game to both of you guys, because we got an offensive lineman and a running back here.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, I almost wondered at a certain point in that game against Mississippi State if we saw them kind of just like putting all this passing game on tape to put Texas's eyes on that and keep Texas from loading the box on Saturday. And Saturday will be when we finally see ETN like tote it 25 times and they want to just really kind of control the numbers in this game. Is because I don't think this offensive line, I mean, they've struggled at times with some assignments and stuff. They're down 2 starters. I don't know if you want to be in a spot where you're asking them to run against 7 and 8 man boxes over and over and be successful in this game.
Let me kick this off and ask him really George a question, because I think we talked about this maybe at the Clemson game. It might have been last couple weeks when I saw you.
Mm-hmm.
Schematically, we don't play like that in terms of we're gonna just ground and pound. And I feel like even the formations, the sets, all like the plays that we're running now, it's not what we were running back in 2012 to 15, where we got back at the dot, we loaded it up, we was running power, toss sweep to the boundary, all that. It just don't seem like we have that game anymore. It's not a part of what we do. So I almost feel like it just seems like inside zone, outside zone from the gun, things of that nature. And to me, that doesn't lend itself to like that smash mouth, like, we're gonna just line up and run it down your throat the whole game, pause, whatever. So I'll be curious on what you think about that, George.
You can do whatever you want to do. I played in Denver where we ran what we wanted to run.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all zone. It was all inside zone and outside zone. We did what we wanted to do. It could be 3rd and 6. He can call, like Kubiak could call he can call the outside zone on 3rd and 6 and expect us to get it. You know what I mean? So it's about mentality. It's about what you want to do. I don't think so far that's not what they wanted to do. I think they wanted to, and this is all speculation from me. I'm not in these meetings with them. I think they wanted to develop the passing game. I think it's layered. Now this could be the conspiracists coming through and me,
it is election season, so
it's not even my nature, but could they be trying to attract these big time receivers from high school? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And they need to. I agree. They need to. Could that be an issue? Could it be an issue where they feel like we're not as advanced, losing, 2 guys that are playing really good in the NFL right now, in Bowers and McConkey. So losing them and having to, I guess manufacture that type of yardage again in the passing game. So it's taking some time to get our passing game going. They want to keep getting that going, but I feel like they have the ability, to run the ball if they want to. The top 2 backs on the team are averaging on the season. I was looking during the game last season. On the season, they were averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. To me, that tells me it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, and that's plenty yards per carry. I'll take 4. You know what I mean? I'm old school. I'll take 4 yards a carry. You know what I mean? They're averaging nearly 6, so they can run the ball. if they want to.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, Keith, just was checking some SECStatCat.com is a good source for what I'm about to share. But Georgia had run inside zone on almost 20% of plays post Auburn game. This past week, they were, for the first time all year, really, they were kind of split zone and gap, almost 50-50 down the middle. That's one thing I did think about the Mississippi State game, was that it kind of felt like they were trying to drill some concepts and that type of thing. And I mean, like, I will say that in general with Kirby teams and some of these lesser opponents, it's especially since they won the title in 2021 and his job became super, super secure. To me, it has not ever felt like they are trying to just put up 60 for the sake of putting up 60. In a lot of cases, when they're playing the Mississippi States or the Vanderbilts or formerly Vanderbilts of the world, like, it was all about, we're kind of trying to make this hard on our guys, and we're trying to drill them into doing something that they need to do better, and we're not really going to give them that much scheme to help them out. We just are going to tell each man to go out and beat the guy in front of them. So is it possible that this is kind of like building into something, and we see some things from the run game that we haven't yet? Because, like, coming into the Alabama game, I got told about certain things Georgia was working on in practice that I think would have felt different for the run game, but they got down and never really got to stay on script.
I think the coaches are always playing a game within the game. Being careful about what they're showing, when they're showing it, against which opponents, how they're trying to set it up for later in the season. So, for sure we could see some stuff. And this is one of those games where you would expect to potentially see some stuff we hadn't seen before.
Yeah. All right. We do have a question here from Ultra on Twitter. Is there anything y'all have seen in Texas that makes you think Georgia can create a pass rush? I don't trust our corners to hold up for 60 minutes against Sark. Feel like we're going to have to win a shootout, which Beck is capable of doing, but is less than ideal. I mean, the thing I would say is I haven't seen Texas play one pass rusher like Georgia has maybe 4 or 5 of yet this year.
Yeah. I think we have the ability to win some one-on-ones. But I also think that Kirby, I think we have some packages with pressures that are pretty nasty, and we haven't shown them all. I went over to Mississippi State Hotel, hollered at one of my boys, and I'm just chilling in his room watching his, I got his cowboy remote watching his film, and he, doing the blitz pickup and all that stuff. And I'm watching, like, Georgia got some stuff, and he was like, man, they got some stuff they can send at you. You know what I mean? I just don't think we've used it all yet, but that can help us as well. And but I think we do have some one-on-one guys. I think 13 can get himself going and apply some pressure. I think 11 is still got some stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now, are they good at tackle? Yes. They're really good at tackle. They got NFL tackles. But we got some guys on the edge that are going to play on Sunday as well. So it'll be a good matchup. It's a good matchup in the trenches on both sides. They're going to play, Texas on defense. They're going to play head up. They're going to play 4 down and get after it. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I think, just looking at sort of some of the pressure numbers for Texas so far this year, the center Majors has kind of led them in terms of pressures allowed, and he's tied with one of their starting guards. I think that matches up pretty well for Georgia, because I feel like with Michael and Jalen, those guys, like, you put them out there and you pass the ball 30 times, they're going to get home eventually.
Yes.
But the strength of this pass rush to me has been Ingram, Dawkins, and those guys in the middle. Like, they've been super disruptive. And so looking at Texas's offensive line and kind of seeing that their offensive line is good across the board. I don't mean it in a bad way, but I do think there are, maybe some spots in the interior that you like Georgia's matchups there a little bit better.
Early on, Oklahoma brought some funk. You know what I mean? And definitely on the first drive. You know what I mean? They got yours down. At least sacked them once, and I think I saw some more pressures. I see Primetime Dog said, "Oh, you created a pass rush," and I can't tell you what those guys' names are over there on OU, but they were getting to yours, and he doesn't move the greatest. You know what I mean? He is a pocket quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't. He probably not. I think. Shoot, our guy might move better than he does on the run.
Yeah. Well, that's we got another question there saying, is Ewers the least mobile quarterback Georgia's faced from Jonathan D? Yeah, I think so. And I think that is what I love about this matchup for Georgia.
Yeah, that's big. He's right. Jonathan Deagle.
Yeah. Historically, you look at the quarterbacks that have beaten Kirby and, really since 2017, it's, Tua, and then it's Burrow. It's guys who are either top 5 picks basically or top 10 picks, or they're mobile and they're athletes and they give Georgia kind of problems that way, like Milroe, who could end up being a top 10 pick with the way he's played at times. That dude, I've never seen somebody that big turn a corner that fast, just anecdotally, but that's a different conversation. I do think, though, that's the thing that I like the best about this game for Georgia is that what Texas does offensively, they're good at, but it feels like a lot of quick game, and there's not the quarterback run element that really can have stress you and give up explosive plays, and that to me is major just with the way UGA plays defense. I mean, Kirby said post game last week. He said the way that we normally play pass defense here is we really challenge short and intermediate stuff, and we sort of force you to hit deep balls to really get explosive on us. And he's a credit to Mississippi State for doing that. But Ewers is not a deep ball thrower at all. He completed the same amount of 20-yard passes last year as AJ Swan, KJ Jefferson, Graham Mertz. We're not talking about a guy who really airs it out a ton. He's a 34% passer when you go 20-plus yards downfield. So how do you think that kind of helps UGA in this game, Keith?
Graham, I would be lying if I told you I was an expert on what you was just talking about. I think you're in a better position than I am to kind of get into the weeds of it. I'm all about the running backs and obviously, kind of overall explosive plays. But I do think it bodes well for us for the reasons that you just laid out. Because of, you mentioned my man at Mill Road, Alabama, and even going into the game, I was like, he's an X factor. He's somebody that could take a game over. You can basically nullify everything else. I don't think Texas has that, and it's certainly not the quarterback. So, I concur is the best way to say it.
My man, appreciate that. All right. Well, last question for you guys before we get some score predictions out of you. Do you feel like this is a big matchup for Georgia? I've seen some people in the media say some things that I feel like are kind of crazy on the lines of this is one of the biggest games of Kirby Smart's career. It's nah, the dude's coached in national title games, but how important is this game in your eyes, just from kind of the perception of Georgia football in this post-Saban era we were talking about earlier?
It's gained importance with the loss at Bama. As far as the matchup, it is what it is. You know what I mean? They're ranked number 1. You know what I mean? You always want to, test your mettle against a team like that. Primetime Dog in the chat says it's bigger for Texas. I agree
wholeheartedly,
because not many people have beat Kirby Smart in the last 5 years,
7 years, 8 years. I mean, it's been a while.
Not many people have beat him. You know what I mean? That's a feather in your cap. You know what I mean? No matter how you slice it, it's kind of like beating, Saban. You know what I mean? Is you want those wins. So yes, it's a bigger game for Texas than it is for Georgia. It's a huge game for Georgia for playoff reasons. You know what I mean? So when it all boils down for this season, it's huge. It's a humongous game. And Georgia, you know, as far as the program history goes, it's just us playing another good team.
Yeah,
I agree.
Again, I would have to double down. I hate when you see in the media, like we saw some of it before the Alabama game, where it's like this is a program defining game. It's Kirby Smart, defines. Come on, man.
They say program defining.
I have seen that. I saw that before Alabama because of the
Matt Hayes of I forget which outlet today said this is the biggest game of Kirby Smart's career. Which I thought
whoever that is, I need to find him.
Look, we in media too, man. I know he's trying to get them clicks. I respect that.
That's true. That's true. I always try to explain to people that sports is sports. Although it's sports, it is the entertainment business. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
True.
On all levels. I had to learn that.
I respect the hustle.
Yeah, it's the entertainment business, but we do want to be respected members of the media. You know what I mean? And you gain that respect by knowing what you're talking about. This is not a program defining game. Yeah. You know what I mean? When a team that's won 2 national championships in the last 3 years, that defines the program and how they recruit. And that's going to be in place whether they win this game or lose it.
I don't even think, obviously I think we have much more leverage if we went out, but just with the way things are shaping up, I mean.
Oh, you can make the playoff if you lose this game. You just have to white knuckle the rest of the season in a way that you probably don't want to. You don't have any margin for error left.
Exactly. I'm excited.
I always kind of felt like coming into this year, though, the chances of Georgia going to Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss and not dropping a game felt a little slim to me. Like it feels to me like a loss was probably expected with this schedule. Georgia's the first team to go play 2 top 5 road opponents in the same season since 1996.
Yeah, I saw that. We had a big boy schedule. I mean, we had kind of a cupcake schedule last year, so
no doubt.
We got our fix this year, but I'm with you, Graham. I always thought there was 1 or 2 that could happen. And one of the things I was laughing with somebody a couple of days ago about is like the other thing that's obviously happened within the landscape of collegiate athletics, particularly like football, is the transfer portal, NIL, and like kind of the talent is evening out across the board. So I was joking with somebody, it would be when Georgia was finally on top and in place to be that, I'm not saying we can't be. I still think we can be, but the way that recruiting used to work and obviously not having to compensate athletes, you had the ability to just stack talent in a different way. And now it's starting to spread out. So I think you're seeing tighter games, more competition. Obviously, it's a harder schedule now. So I think the days of just running the table, like what we've, been accustomed to teams, those days might not be here. Those days might be gone.
Man, look at the SEC, man. It's fun. It's going crazy right now. You know what I mean? It's like who can you
shout out to Vandy?
Who can you really sleep on? You know what
I mean, even this kid from Mississippi State, dude, like, I'm sorry. Go look at that throw he made over Aguero. Go look at the last touchdown he makes over Humphrey. Like, that kid was dropping dimes out there in that game. And I understand that they were getting beat and all that, but like, he's talented, super talented.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting, conference going forward. You know what I mean? At first, when it sounded weird to have, Texas and Oklahoma at first, but now that they're in it and it's good. I think it's going to be fun. You know what I mean? Because like in the past, like would this have been our, schedule, and he's, going to Bama, Texas, and playing them when they're high, like, Texas hadn't been ranked this high lately. You know what I mean? And so now they are. So it's like, oh man, okay. We added another one to the mix,
It's good for the sport. It's good for the sport. I enjoy it. It's not the same experience as it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
No.
It's more unpredictable than ever. You know what I mean? Vandy.
It's the professionalization of the sport. I mean,
we used to say BMAC used to always say, them boys on scholarship too. You know what I mean? But now it's like the boys getting paid too, you know, and they trying to, you know, So.
Yeah.
All right. What do you tell me? How's it going to play out Saturday night?
Let me get mine out the way. I think the Dogs. I think we end up. We definitely gonna win. I'm picking the Dogs to. I say 31 to 31-21.
Like that. I like that. I'm gonna go Dogs something like a 42-20. I think the narrative flips, and next week we talking about, hey, calm down. You know, we still got to go play these other boys because they're gonna be in the media talking about how dominant Georgia is, blah blah blah. So I think it's one of those kind of like when Tennessee came to town a couple. Was it last year, 2 years ago, and everybody was ready to smack. It. Be very similar. So
I really, to your point, Keith, I love this spot for Georgia. I mean, you talk about being kind of just freed up to like go and hunt. And I think in some way the loss to Alabama kind of absolved you of some of the pressure of like these streaks and a lot of that stuff that was really owned by past teams and not really part of this 2024 team's identity. So yeah, I think it's a great spot for Georgia. I think the best part for them is that they played that game at Alabama. You know, this Texas team, I know they played Red River last week, but like the way they were able to manage that game with that backup quarterback across from them, there was not really the pressure on a down-to-down basis of if I make a mistake right here, it could cost my team the game. It could change the shape of this game. So I love it for Georgia. I think that they are probably just in a very good mental spot to go into the stadium. And I think Texas playing at home as a number one ranked team will probably feel the pressure of this a little bit more than UGA will, or even a lot more than UGA will. So if they can get to that place mentally, I think they'll play fast, they'll play loose. And the big key like stat for me really is Ewers, his average depth of throw is 6.1 yards downfield, which is not a lot in college football at all. And I think the spot that I worry about for Georgia right now is it's back there in the secondary, and I think they've kind of struggled to play some of these 50-50 balls at times. I don't know. I'm sure Texas will try to test them on that stuff, but that's just not really how Texas plays. So I am going to go ahead and go with, Georgia wins. I don't know. I feel like this is a game Georgia will score into the 30s, maybe, 34, 37, 38, somewhere in that range. And I kind of feel like Texas, they'll score early and all that, but I think Georgia kind of pulls away late. So I'll say like 37-24, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I want to make one comment just as a disclaimer. All of my takes are objective. I'm not a homer at all. So, everything is super objective, taking both sides into account.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right on. Don't mess with Texas, says Wick Topo. I see you from Port Arthur. Shout out, man. All right. Well, yeah, I think they might get messed with a little bit. I mean, they're going to get messed with. They might win anyways, but they're going to get messed with a little bit.
We went from Go Georgia to F Georgia to
yeah. Fandom's awesome. Right on. All right. Well, appreciate you gentlemen for joining us. If you are in Austin this weekend, come and check us out. We will be maybe Faust if you're around. I don't know what you're up to, but Austin Happy Hour presented by Home Field for Dog Central. Everyone can come. We got some free food and booze for subscribers, but if you come and say you watch the stream, we'll make sure you get some free stuff as well. So hope y'all will come if you're in town. You can be a Longhorn. You can be a dog. Just come hang out. We'll be at Crown and Anchor Pub in the Hyde Park University area, downtown Austin, right by UT's campus, 4 to 6 p.m. on Friday at 2911 San Jacinto Boulevard. So hope to see y'all there. I'm sure we'll see a lot of y'all down in Austin. I think there will be quite a few Georgia folks in town this weekend, as well as plenty of Australians and other nationalities coming to watch F1. Should be quite a collective race. That's right. Let's go, Bobo, says Primetime Dog. There you go. All right. Until then, that was Keith. This is George. I'm Graham. See y'all.
All right.